is Unit 3 for 5th grade, using Cuisenaire rods to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. With the Cuisenaire rods, any of your people that attended Project Inspire should have class sets of these. And this is a set of 74 that comes in a bag, and usually 2 students can share a bag. When we first start using Cuisenaire rods, I recommend you let the kids have time to play with them and discover and talk to me about what they see, and they'll do all kinds of things. Some of them will build, but a lot of them will compare the lengths and things like that. Once they've had time to think about them and talk about them and kind of see what they can do, I'll ask them, I'll say, can you draw or explain which colors can be lined up end to end to create the same length as the green rod? So they've got to go through this bag and find colors that they can line up end to end with the green rod. And this is great to send, to centers later, stations. So we hope they'll notice things. They'll say, and they'll talk to each other. This is great conversations because I love for kids to learn from one another. And so we have a lot of talking going on. You can also have your document camera going. And if somebody has a lot of examples, then you could have them take their clipboard, go up there and share with the class. So we can see we can make halves with the light green. We're hoping they notice that somebody can find, oh my goodness, if we can have 3 equal pieces of the reds must be thirds. And then my whites, and that's really hard to see on that white paper, the whites there's 6 equal pieces of the whites. Then the next thing I charge them with, once they've discovered this, and these are the ones that they can make out of the Cuisenaire rods, I ask them, name as many fraction relationships as possible with the dark green rod. Okay, so let's look at some things that they might discover. All right, these are things that they might find out. They could say, okay, here are these thirds. The third is equivalent to, it's the same as the 2/6. So I could say 1/3 equals 2/6. Great way to work on equivalence. All right. Another one I might show is like, here's my 1/2. My 1/2 is the same or equivalent to 3/6. Okay, let's think of another one. What about 2/3? Ooh, here's 2/3. 2 of my reds would make 2/3. 2/3 is equivalent to how many of these 6? Ooh, it's going to be the same as 4/6, isn't it? So you can let them explore and do all of these things. Then, since we've been working on this so much, one of the things I like to have them do is I like for them to create different addition and subtraction problems using the green rod as one whole, okay? So that's one thing that you could do with your kids. Another thing that I do like to do also, I like to change it up because you can have different rods as your whole. What if the brown rod is my whole? Okay, if the brown rod is my whole, which colors can be lined up end to end to create the same length as the green rod? Okay, we can make halves. We can make fourths. Okay, and we can make our eighths. And of course, you can do the same things with those things. How many equivalences can you make? And can you create different problems? So we can see we've got the green rod as a whole and the dark green rod, because you have light green also. We call the light green a line. Okay. Now, Something else I want you to explore here is that we have to do with this standard, and it's like reasoning, okay? You're using your reasoning skills. You want them to be reasoning. All right, now, would 1/2 plus 2/3 be greater than 1? Why or why not? Now, I don't want them to exactly do that. They can be thinking about what they've learned, because with our pattern blocks, we had 1/2 and 2/3. Also, with this dark green rod, we also had thirds, so we could have 2/3. Why or why not? So we want them to be thinking about that, because, of course, 1/2 is a half of a whole. So here's my half. 2/3, ooh, look at that. 2/3 is more than, greater than the 1/2. So if I add those two together, is it going to be less than, exactly a whole, greater than? Talk about things like that. And of course, we hope that they'll realize, because there's a half of the whole and 2/3 is greater than a half, that they would have, their answer would be greater than a whole. And this estimation helps them so much when they're doing their fraction operations, if they can estimate what their answer would be. Good luck with using your Cuisenaire rods. This is, again, Unit 3, and it's 5.NF.1 and 2. And remember, you cannot spend too much time on equivalence and laying this foundation, because as we progress in fractions in 5th grade, there's so much to learn, and we want to make sure that all of our children have a firm foundation. Take these manipulatives, use them in centers, use them in stations. Don't bring them out just once. You need to bring them out multiple times, and so many times you can have supply boxes that you can bring out during math time and let the children decide. Do I want to use Cuisenaire rods today? Do I want to use my circle fractions? Do I want to use the pattern blocks? And let them have a choice once we've introduced them to whatever kinds of fraction manipulatives that we have in our classroom.